welcome everyone. Thank you for all those people, members of the public with us tonight. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. Really appreciate your attendance tonight, and I hope you gain something from tonight's meeting. And we're certainly anxious to listen to what you say when you speak in, and also hopefully we'll be here to answer questions as well. So there's a few things I need to read out, and obviously some of you will know this off pat, but I want to know the change from the normal, and we'll ask a question at the end of that just to make sure we've all been awake. Okay, so there's no fire alarm planned for this evening. Should the alarm sound, please leave via the nearest available emergency exit. The two exits are through the glass door behind you and to my left, and through the double doors onto the riverbank. It's under the clock there. Okay. Please do not use the exit to the back and to my right, as the exit is currently restricted by the works outside. Please meet at Tower House car park. Members of the public are welcome to make their own recordings of this meeting using whatever non-disruptive methods they think are suitable. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting is being filmed and made available to view in live and archive form via the Council's website. If you are seated in the public gallery, it is possible that the cameras may capture your image. If you wish to avoid being filmed, it is recommended that you make a member of the staff aware who can direct you to where to sit in that case. The Westgate Gardens gates on the riverbank are locked at sunset, so members of the public must leave the Guildhall by the side exit behind the glass door. Okay, so all changed tonight then? Yeah, that's okay. So we know where we're going to meet, which is at Tower House, if there should be anything to evacuate for. Okay, so before we start working through the agenda, we will receive representations from members of the public. This can be in any subject as long as the speaker has registered with us in advance and lives or works in the district. Each speaker will have a maximum of 3 minutes to speak. The whole public representation section should take no more than 20 minutes. I'm really delighted that we've got one speaker registered tonight to make representations to us. There will be no discussion following the speaker's contribution, but the Cabinet members may later refer to the issues raised if it's pertinent and part of the agenda. Okay, so from now, Kate Handley, speaking on the Levelling Up proposals on Solly's Orchard. Kate, it's over to you. Please do take your time, set yourself in. There's no rush. Okay. Don't worry about that. You'll be fine. Okay, just sit down and then I just want one more mini. Yeah. Okay. We do it in after a minute. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, thanks, Alex. Good point. Right.
So yes, Solly's Orchard and the Lough plans. A quick word about the Kentish Gazette article recently. I don't know if anyone's seen it. We actually told the reporter the petition was not about accusing the council of anything. It was testing local opinion on what seems to be important to the users of the park so that it could inform the final plan. But the article ended up both confrontational and inaccurate. So I started the petition after asking users of Solly's Orchard over a period of a week what they thought of the Lough plans. Pretty much all of them were definite about keeping existing grass areas along the riverbank and within the park. How to pass that on to the council in a scientific and not anecdotal way? By starting a petition and only promoting it with signs in the orchard. We then posted on local Facebook groups when the signs were taken down, of course. 1,277 signatories, most from the Canterbury district, but a significant number who are UK visitors staying in Canterbury and enjoying Solly's Orchard. So I hope that is considered valid, as Lough is partly about attracting more visitors. So the problems we have with the most recent plan are, one, the 22 metres of paving along the most popular section of the grassy riverbank, together with the path moved closer to the river, means that there will only be a narrow grass verge along the whole length. It's no longer practical or attractive to picnickers. We suggest 5 metres paving at one end and 8 metres at the other, and the path remaining where it is will give a balance for wheelchair users and the grass lovers. There's only one other small area in Canterbury where you can actually picnic on the grass by the river, and that's from Broad Oak to Toddler's Cove. The rest of the river has a path alongside. And two, the 2 open areas where people currently play games and have gatherings. The plans are to plant trees in rows, like a commercial orchard, in these areas. This will also obscure the brilliant view of the cathedral from the main path. We are not against trees, quite the opposite. The right type in the right place means that Solly's can look like an old orchard and still have open space, as a park should, as well as keeping the cathedral view from the main path. We have suggestions, but there's no time left now. I have emailed you photos and the plans, which will make what I've said clearer. And I want to end with thanking Alison Hargreaves, who's had the impossible task of politely judging feedback from all sides. I hope this petition will actually help. I know it's late in the process, but these 2 suggested modifications are actually quite minor. We have fed them back, and they would make a huge difference to Solly's visitors. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we value very much your comments. Thank you for that. Appreciated. Right. Okay. So now we're on to the agenda part of the tonight. So welcome to this is the agenda part of the meeting of the Cabinet. The Cabinet is part of the Council responsible for the day-to-day decisions. It is chaired by the leader, who is elected by the Council, and that's me, Alan Baldock. The other Cabinet members are as follows. Councillor Sol, Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Finance. Councillor Castle, Cabinet Member for Property and IT. Councillor Hazelton, Cabinet Member for Housing. Councillor Dawkins, Cabinet Member for Environment and Climate Change. Councillor Charlotte Cornell, Cabinet Member for Council Services, Culture and Heritage. Councillor Chris Cornell, Cabinet Member for Economic Development and Inclusion and Coastal Towns Champion. Councillor Ricketts, Cabinet Member for Tourism, Transport, Performance and Oversight, and the Rural Champion as well. And Councillor Connie Nolan, Community Engagement, Safety and Enforcement. The Cabinet collectively provides strategic leadership to the Council. Okay. Apologies for absence, please, Vanessa.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, we have apologies from Councillors Nolan and Sol.
Thank you for that. So, declarations of interest. I know Alex has, so take Alex first.
Thank you, Chair. On item 9, the Strategic Grants Performance Review, I have been working with one of the successful companies, Sports Connect, not on anything to do with grants or anything, just advising them on marketing and sponsorship, paid for by a different organisation, not paid directly by them. However, it could be seen that I may have an interest. So on that item, I will absent myself from the room until it is concluded.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. That's wise choice, I think, on that one. Thank you for that. Anybody else at all? Okay, that's great. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, beg your pardon.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. Well, on that basis, maybe I should declare that I'm a trustee of the Rising Sun Domestic Abuse charity that has also been a beneficiary of one of those grants.
Yeah.
And I take advice as to whether I need to be absent, but hopefully not. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I think we're agreed. That's a voluntary announcement. You're a trustee, not paid for that. That's okay. Thank you. Does any cabinet member want to make any announcements tonight before we start the main part of the agenda? Okay, Mel.
Right, that's the first time I've ever done that. Got on to put my card in. Okay, yeah, I just thank you. One announcement was to say that we have now appointed a new climate officer, which is very a new climate officer, which is very exciting. The last one left sadly, and we've got, I think she's starting next week. Her name is Penny Bramwell. And she has a lot of experience of sustainability, climate and the environment, and really look forward to welcoming her to the council. You've probably seen a lot of announcements about the biodiversity grants, but I thought I'd use this opportunity to mention it yet again, that they are out for applications. It's very successful last year with lots of funding allocated, the full funding allocated, and there's another 1,500, yep, in the kitty, no, 15,000, sorry, in the kitty, and applications are welcome, and you can see details of that on the website if you scroll down to newsroom. And I think that's the announcement. And I just want to say thank you for our speaker tonight and delivering the petition, and we will be talking about it, I'm sure. Okay, thank you.
That's great, Mel. Thanks for that. Anybody else? Lots been going on, but probably lots of things are already out in the public domain, aren't they? So that's really good. Okay, thank you for that. Just seconds. Right, public participation, that's item 4 on our agenda. I'm really pleased that we've got 2 speakers, one on item 8 and one on item 10. We look forward to hearing their contribution when those 2, or just before those agenda items are heard. So thank you for that. The next bit is we need to consider the minutes of the meeting held on 23rd of April, item 5. And has anybody got any thoughts or comments on that? If not, I just need to ask one of you to second my proposal to confirm the minutes.
Seconded.
Thank you, Per. So we can take that on general assent if you're all happy with that. Okay. Thank you very much for that. Okay. Okay, references from committees. This is part A of our agenda, so item 6, starting off with that. So this one is firstly with me. Sorry?
I just need to note the
Yeah.
minutes of the overview before we move.
Oh yeah, pardon, thanks. Yeah, thanks. So, first thing, actually, I'll just a couple of words. There's a few items in our agenda tonight that went through overview committee, and a few of us went to overview committee as well. Absolutely brilliant meeting. I think it was thorough. It was challenging. It's exactly what an overview meeting should be. And just by reading our notes tonight for tonight's meeting, loads of those things have been taken on board already. And also it is really helpful to us that we have a good overview committee, and we're pleased that we got that as well. So thanks to the overview committee in their absence, but we appreciated it and we appreciate their work on that. And also the work that the officers do in getting those reports out for the overview committee that are just about there and can only get better, as they say. So I'm really pleased with that. So thank you. So, okay. So we can go on to 7. Yeah. Okay. All right. So the first item is item 7. That's we need to consider the local development scheme, or otherwise known as the local plan timetable. You've all had the chance to have a look at the report from Joint Chief Execs, particularly Peter Davies and Leo Whitlock, who put through the documents and paperwork. From my point of view, and I will ask probably Leo tonight just to say a few words in a minute as well on that, but this is all about the timetable for the local plan. It's not agreeing anything to do with the local plan, it's just the timetable for the way that we deliver it. So and our proposal is the resolution is as per the report to approve the revised local development scheme as set out in Appendix 1 of that report. So before we do anything else, I'd like to ask one of you to second that proposal. Happy to, thanks, Charlotte, thank you for that. So it's proposed and seconded, so we're to approve the revised local development scheme, Appendix 1, set out in the report. I'm proposing that, Charlotte seconded it. We'll start the debate on that now and the conversations. So, Leo, would you like to say just a few words to introduce the item, and then we'll just pick up the bits and pieces that go with it?
Thank you, Chair. This is a technical report, just tweaking the timetable and pushing it back slightly. One of the reasons for that is the government's extended its timetable and deadline. So we've got a little bit more room to play with, but equally we need to get this done. And we've had a call for sites focused on brownfield sites, and we needed to process that and look at the evidence and analysis of that information that's come back to us. The timetable that is proposed in the report is a focused Regulation 18 consultation, which will be the 5th consultation on this draft local plan in September of this year. Then spring 2026, a Regulation 19 consultation, which is much more limited consultation about the soundness of the plan, before we send it off to a planning inspector, a Secretary of State in autumn 2026. And then we wait for the planning inquiry, the examination in public, fingers crossed with adoption in winter 2027. That's it, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think it's just probably worth mentioning in public. Thanks for that. It's absolutely what it is. A great deal, just so we're not dodging it, the delays are almost inevitable because of the new, when the new government was elected, the National Planning Policy Framework was tweaked and amended, making differences to the housing numbers, as well as other bits and pieces in there as well. And it also prompted us, in fact, quite rightly, to go out and look again for new brownfield sites. There's a lot of pressure to, get as many brownfield sites as we can, and we've certainly done that now. And it takes time to get those often difficult locations, whether they're worthy of inclusion or not at this moment in time. So I'm really keen to do that. But this is very much a case of accepting and reflecting where we are and making sure that we keep ourselves absolutely tied to our new timetable, which is clearly in our report there, September 25, right the way through to the winter of 27, hopefully adoption of the new local plan, which we can be well proud of. So has anybody got any comments or thoughts to make on that? Okay, thank you for that. So Alex and then Chris to follow, if you wouldn't mind, please.
Thank you, Alan. Just a very quick one to say, I think it's a very good idea that we adopt this timetable. I think what's going on behind the scenes is a huge amount of work from officers, and a lot of that is due to the strength of response and interest from residents, which can only be a good thing. I think we do have this extra time. I think it's important that we do things properly, that we listen, and where possible, hopefully when that new Regulation 18, focused Regulation 18 comes out, that people will see that they've been listened to. I'm not sure everybody will be winners in that, but at least they will show that we have listened to those responses and we have changed things where we can. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. That's good point. I'll come back on a couple of those again. Chris.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to kind of build on Alex's point of view to say that whilst this going out for consultation again is obviously kind of kick-started by some changes to the MPPF, it also provides us an opportunity to really show that we're listening, and that's an opportunity which we're kind of really grabbing at both hands here. People said they wanted more brownfield sites. We did a call for sites, tried to find more brownfield sites, and when this unit comes in, no shocker, you might see some more. However, I think that it's important to also just kind of have on record that whilst this will go out as a consultation and we ask very clearly for people's comments on new stuff, if people previously have commented on existing sites, those comments still stand, they are still considered. And so it's not that we are kind of hiding and moved on from them, it's that we are looking for specific comments with new pieces at new sites that we're looking at and tightening up of some additional strategic operations. So you can give comments on the new consultation, and we would welcome people, but you don't need to give the same comments you necessarily gave last time. They will still be considered.
Absolutely, that's a really good point to emphasise that, Chris. And this is very much the very limited scope Reg 18 this time. Just the differences basically, and some changes and slight changes to what's there before. So not the whole lot again. And in fact, every single consultation right from the beginning of this process in 2023-4, isn't it? Way back in the first time this went out, all of those comments are still there and still valid, aren't they, on the system? So, and many of those have changed in their context as well. Yeah, Leah.
And they'll all be passed to the planning inspector when he makes his decision or her decision at the examination process. So none of it will be wasted. It's a really good point. We'll pass it all on to the planning inspector.
Yeah, it's a thorough piece of work, and rightly so, because it's a very important document, isn't it? It's our future, so that's really good. Okay, if there's no other comments, we do need to resolve this, don't we? Yeah, go ahead, Mel. Sorry.
Yeah, it's just a question about the next consultation. I was trying to find out, for the sake of everyone here as well, how long that might be, that consultation. Is it the standard 6 weeks, or is it going to be 8 weeks, 12 weeks?
We're looking at that, Councillor Dawkins, but we'll make it as long as we possibly can to get as many people's views on board as we can.
Yeah, date's just to be finalised yet, isn't it? But we're getting that out as soon as we can. That's fine. Okay. In that, we do need to resolve this, so it'll be a formal vote in a second or two. Obviously, a vote for is to allow this to happen.
That's carried unanimously, Chair.
That was probably the most exciting item of the agenda tonight. That's out of the way now, so it's all calm now. Yes. I'm just saying. Okay. Anyway, more importantly, take a breath. Let's change tone, change direction on what we're talking about tonight. So this is item 8. This is the closure of Foresters Hall Trust and the distribution of the trust assets to the Whitstable Museum and Canterbury Museum and Galleries collection. A good long read that I think I know more about Whitstable Museum and the collection than I did. Well, it's been a long time, hasn't it? It's been a very long time getting this right. So I'd like to ask Charlotte to introduce the item. Obviously, Michelle is here as well to work with us through tonight, so we understand exactly what we're voting for and what we're going to get out of it. Thank you.
This item, Alan, is an example of exciting, and modern museum practice is now, as demonstrated by our own fantastic museums, fun and innovative. This, however, is a little bit more procedural, and to my cabinet members, I know you're all quite familiar with the story behind what we're discussing today. We're really proud of our work with the Whitstable Museums. We think they do an absolutely fantastic job. And a very hopefully short item tonight. We're looking to delegate authority to Michelle, who is the head of Culture, Leisure and External Development, to act on behalf of the City Council as corporate trustee for the Foresters Hall. We believe it is now appropriate to close the Foresters Hall Trust and to distribute the assets of the trust. The assets would be distributed property, going for nil sum to Whitstable Community Museum and Gallery, and the collections will remain with the City Council, although they will be on loan to the Whitstable Museum. And this is supported by external legal advice. The Foresters Hall Trust as a charity have exact matching objectives to the Whitstable Hall Museum and Gallery. There is no better partner to distribute the asset at nil sum to. In fact, there is no other suitable partner who has the matching aims and objectives of the charity. So we are looking for a new resolution because a previous resolution was made to extend the lease of the Foresters Hall Trust. Now we wish to get rid of the Foresters Hall Trust and give the Whitstable Museum that building so they can creatively safeguard the collections and access to the collections for the people of Whitstable and people visiting Whitstable. So the resolution is... Oh,
They get you to come back in a second or two to propose that.
Fine.
And then we're spot on track. My mistake, sorry
lovely,
about
thank
that.
you.
But then that's great because we've got a little bit of an introduction and we're let to... Okay. Take your time, Claire, get yourself set up and then just go for it when you're ready.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everybody. I'm really pleased to be here tonight in support of this proposal to transfer the title of the Foresters Hall building to the Whitstable Community Museum and Gallery Trust. I'd like to thank officers and cabinet members for working together to get to this point. This change will enable the museum to finally draw down the £175,000 Arts Council grant they've secured to enable improvement works to the hall, which will ensure the longevity of the museum. The Museum Trust will be adding £75,000 to this grant, making an impressive £250,000 to invest in the future of Whitstable Museum. The museum's trustees have demonstrated that they have an in-depth understanding of the museum buildings, collections and financial resources. I've no doubt that the museum will be in safe hands going forward. I'd like to take this opportunity to tell you how impressed I've been by the work of the museum. The trustees and volunteers' dedication to both preserving and celebrating the artefacts we're fortunate to have in the district's collections is quite exceptional. Moreover, their approach is driven by their firm belief that local museum and its collections should be made as accessible as possible for all in the local community. They provide free access for local residents and they work closely with local schools, providing opportunities that some children might not otherwise have to explore history and work with local historians outside the classroom. Local university students also benefit from internship and volunteer posts, helping to catalogue the archives and developing vital work skills and experience. The museum also hosts frequent, enjoyable and informative events. It is a vibrant and thriving community museum and we are lucky to have it. There are a couple of associated matters I'd like to raise this evening. Firstly, the Oxford Street building. This building currently hosts the museum shop. It provides an important source of income to the museum, as well as providing space for offices, archives and cataloguing work. Its purchase for the council in the 1990s was funded in part, I believe, on the understanding that it would be a museum building. I hope the council will quickly be able to agree arrangements for this building's continued use by the museum on terms which support them in achieving their aims. And secondly, trustees have told me how much they've appreciated the mentoring they've received from the council's museum service. I hope this will be continuing. However, they and I would like to see a better profile for the local museums, both Whitstable and Herne Bay, on the Council Museums website and in council communications. Both coastal museums operate without any direct financial subsidy from the council, unlike the Beanie, and have to require entry fees from non-residents in order to make ends meet, again unlike the Beanie, which is free for all. If the council could make all efforts to raise the profile of the coastal museums and promote their work, it would be of great help to them in achieving their aims and would be greatly appreciated by us all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claire. Appreciate that. And so we get back on track and we can forget that I messed up. But Charlotte, that gives you the opportunity to answer a couple of points there, I think, as well. And obviously at the end, if you're into few words there, if you want to do the formal part as well, that'd be appreciated.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the support and the kind words given about the museums team. I'll just answer a couple of points before I come to the resolution. I won't repeat myself. The Oxford Street building, yes, we are having those discussions. However, with local government reorganisation, you'll appreciate that there are extra legal considerations that we have to be aware of at the moment when it comes to how and to whom we distribute or don't distribute property. We are under extra degrees of scrutiny. And the legal advice certainly that we've had as Cabinet, and I'm sure you're also aware of as councillors, is we do have to tread really carefully, both in our discussions and in our legal considerations of the matters regarding property distribution. The Whitstable Museums team are absolutely fantastic. That they do incredible work, and the amount of the fiscal amount that volunteering saves the community and brings to the community by these trustees is almost unquantifiable. So I absolutely echo your thanks. It's very hard to compare, X and Y with the Beanie, and I think that's a dangerous route to go down. Just because they are operating on really different models, housing really different collections with values and interests. And we are aware they're different funding models, but we're not considering charging, for example, for entrance to the Beanie. I know you proposed that to me in an email, Claire, earlier in the year, and that's not something that we'd be looking to do at this time. We're very much keen to keep all our collections free in the city, and actually look to how we can further support our Whitstable and Herne Bay museums even further in the future using some of our grants and other matters coming forwards. So now I'd like to move back to the resolution. Do you want me to read that out, or is it as per the paper? To delegate authority to the Head of Culture, Leisure and External Development to act on behalf of Canterbury City Council as corporate trustee for the Foresters Hall Trust, to enter into necessary arrangements/documentation to wind up the Foresters Hall Trust and disposal of the property known as Foresters Hall by transfer of the title of the property to the Whitstable Museum for nil consideration, and transfer the remaining collection items to Canterbury Museums and Galleries, and to delegate authority to the Head of Legal Services to approve and seal such documentation as is necessary to wind up the Foresters Hall Trust and transfer the title of the property to the Whitstable Community Museums and Gallery. Whew, a few more commas there. That's the resolution. Could I seek a seconder, please?
Thank you, Councillor Hazelton. That's fine. Okay, that's brilliant. So that's now there. Shall we ask Michelle to make sure that we've got sanity check on all of that and add some more depth to it if you can? That's really good.
I'm in. So that was all fantastic. Thank you, Charlotte. Councillor Turnbull, thank you for your comments, and the team will really appreciate that. The only one point of clarification, both Seaside Museum and Whitstable Community Museum do receive grant funding from the City Council, so there's a slight error there. And we would have every intention of continuing our mentoring support.
Just quickly, I think we were chatting earlier, and obviously the legal documentation is ready to go, providing we do vote for this tonight, then this could be starting its journey to completion very, very quickly, I think, yeah?
Absolutely. So if it's agreed by Cabinet tonight, the legal papers are all ready with both solicitors ready to be signed.
So no more delays and whatever, but that's up to us, of course, so we can vote for that. Is there anyone else who wants to make a comment at all? I was just being very impressed with some of the things. I've been to Whitstable Museum, and again, I've learned a huge amount from that museum as well. So it's really, really fascinating place. So good luck to their future, and hope we can be there for them for as long as we need to be there. So if that's where it is, we need to resolve this, don't we? So to resolve that is to carry out, I won't ask you to repeat it again, Charlotte, the resolutions that we heard proposed and seconded there. Thank you.
And that's carried unanimously, Chair.
We're now to item 9 on our agenda. That's about strategic grants performance review. We've got Bill Hicks here tonight, Michelle Mubarak, and Alison as well. Alison Small, I think, isn't it? Alison Small. So we're here to help us through this and to get an understanding of what we're doing. So I'll hand over to Chris there to introduce the item, and then Michelle or Alison can come back and help us clarify any issues as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. At this point of the year, the Council normally brings a paper highlighting the fantastic work supported under our RISE grants by local community organisations. And the paper here attached shows effectively the projects that we funded in the last year, both as part of round 1 and round 2. But the key element here is effectively that every year, as it's kind of said, we get considerably more applications than we necessarily have funds for, 4 times as many as this year. And I think in sitting down and dealing with the RISE grants every year, it becomes difficult to suggest that even those that we don't fund aren't kind of like beneficial, because the local charities have a kind of key role to play in ensuring, like we do, that our kind of community is better and fairer and stronger. And greener for the local residents. They are a key way in which our district is animated, and a fantastic resource, which, as Charlotte identified when we were talking about the museum, we can effectively build upon. In this paper today, we're not just, however, suggesting that it's all about money. This recommendation here is trying to change the way in which the council works and supports the voluntary sector in a way which makes our relationships with them, I think, more mature and more sustainable. The 2 key recommendations we're making today are thus that rather than every year the RISE grant panel set their own priorities as to what the funding should be, we agree a firmer settlement over a longer period of time that the grant priorities will sit within the corporate priorities that we have identified. Last December, we did a piece of work with local voluntary sector organisations where we introduced them to a corporate plan and encouraged them to look at their own activities and how they fit within it. The key element of that is that local charities are delivering across all of our corporate plan areas, and it is important to give them certainty over the next couple of years to know where funding will be, so that rather than it chop and change, they can effectively bid across multiple grant rounds with the idea that that our priorities will not change over that period of time, and they can grow pieces of work. The second recommendation here is to change the focus of the Strategic Grants Panel, which is a group of councillors who at the moment endorse and support the recommendations about how we engage. We're recommending that we change that to become the Voluntary Sector Development Panel, and we're going to restructure how those meetings occur. So rather than sit in an ivory tower and decide how the grants are done and then basically tell people, we are going to run a series of events 3 times a year where members of that panel will meet with the members of the voluntary sector and talk about the priorities which are already existing within the community, because they effectively know them far better than we do at times. and that they will utilise those opportunities or those kind of touchstones to inform the type of work that we do. It will also provide a structured way in which other pieces of work which we do with the voluntary sector, so work like the Strategic Healthcare Alliance or work around the Community Safety Partnership, can effectively have a home and be reported to councillors where they don't fit within a natural kind of funding stream. We work with the voluntary sector, not just in a kind of transactional relationship by giving them money, but they add value to a huge range of activities and work which the council does. And at the moment, there's no place in which we showcase some of that, which we will do at these events, but also are able to talk about them. So the idea here is to better inform councillors of the work that we are doing and put them at the heart of that conversation with the voluntary sector about how we do it together. So I would encourage you to support the report. I am proposing that we resolve to accept the recommendations of a strategic grants panel to use the corporate plan as the basis for priorities for its strategic grants programme, and that we approve the new terms of reference and the change of the name of the strategic grants panel to the voluntary sector development panel to reflect the principles in the civil society covenant. Can I have a seconder, please?
Thank you, Mel. Appreciate that. Okay. Thank you, Chris, for that. Got a few thoughts on that. Michelle, can you just, or Alison, was ever going to take this one? Just any comments, any thoughts, any additions to Chris's summary there?
Thank you. Yeah, just agree with everything Councillor Cornell has said. I think the event in December that we run with the voluntary sector, we had over 80 people there, and I think they were really enthusiastic how they can contribute to the corporate plan and how they fit into the council's plan, but also how they already measure a lot of their outcomes around the UN SDGs as well. So that was really critical for them, and I think they came away really positive with that input. With that, we've already gone out with the first round of strategic grants for this year, and we've had 42 applications, and one of the things we've asked in that is how they contribute to the UN SDGs as well, and that's quite interesting seeing that come through as well.
So thank you for that. Chris, do you want to come back on that? No? Okay. So anybody else? Pip, please do.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think this is one. I'm really, really pleased to see these proposals, and I'll certainly be supporting it. And I really like the idea of tying the finance that we have available for community and voluntary sector to our corporate plan and the sustainable development goals. And I particularly like the idea of meeting with the voluntary sector, several times throughout each year cycle, learning from them, working in partnership, many heads better than none. And as you say, Chris, that, they have very good and detailed knowledge of their communities and the work that they are delivering and where need is. And also that partnership stuff about working with other organisations to avoid duplication, to add value. All of that, I think, just really, for me, is an intrinsic part of what I think, our whole administration is about developing and deepening those community relationships. So I was really pleased to hear about it and read the detail in the report. Thank you.
Yes, please, Mel.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and also just want to say a great report and a great new sort of way of approaching this whole element of grants and fundings and stuff like that. And I've always been keen to have that bridge, if you like, to know what's actually going on in the community and what grants are there, and try and bring them together and then tweak them a little bit so that we actually address the needs that are actually there in reality, or what's in the reality of what's happening, not just what we think is happening. And so that's and really pleased to see that in the report, that's we're a step towards that now and going to make that happen. Obviously there was just lots and lots of people and charities and organisations that do want money, and you had to turn so many away, and it's not. There are lots of pots of money, but we all know those pots of money are getting smaller and smaller. as there's more dependency on voluntary organisations in our society at the moment. So I don't know if there's some way that when you're doing your meetings, you can look at ways of sort of accessing more money. And also, I know that a lot of the there was quite big grants going to people there. I know a lot of charities just need to have one accepted grant, so then they get a step on the funding ladder. So then they can say, "Oh, we've got one from Canterbury," so that makes you look a bit more attractive to other funders. So whether there's some way of sort of including a few sort of 50, £100 grants or something, just to give people a badge, so they can carry on getting more funding.
Yeah, that's good. I was just going to say really that, again, I've been absolutely impressed by the way that this is shaped over the last 2 years, effectively, because we couldn't do huge amounts in the first year of administration, but our corporate plan is in place now. There's ones where we really are linking everything that we do to sustainable development goals. And really, it gives every single person in this council, every single person in this communities to actually have the chance to think global but act local. And, you think about all of the grants and against our corporate aims, the 4 corporate aims, as well as the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Absolutely phenomenal piece of work, I think. And the big thing, it picks up on Mel's point, is this is scalable because it's now in one place. If we sometimes the fairies might drop a huge bucket of £200,000 extra next year. It's in that pot. It just gets more going out, doesn't it? And it doesn't change anything we do. It's all now within this focus and within this platform. I think it's an amazing piece of work. I think, personally, I think I'd like to thank the whole team. It's been a huge effort by officers, I think, to come around in a different way of thinking and a different way of working. And it's a credit to you all, I think, to do that. I don't know whether you want to sort of endorse anything on that, Chris, as well, because it's been your baby, really. But that's how I feel personally.
Oh, it's a fantastic piece of work, and thanks to Michelle and Alison and all the team who sat there and didn't wear the Christmas jumpers I suggested when we did the event in December, but were there enthusiastically regardless. Just picking up on a few of the things which kind of Mel said. As part of the event, we often use it as an opportunity to bring organisations down to talk about potential elements of fundraising, but kind of those workshop sessions are very kind of welcome and appreciated. And we're going to also move them around the district as well, because I think we're also aware that sometimes those events can be dominated by certain kind of bodies. And certainly when we ran the event at the King's Hall last December, we had a far higher turnout with some of the smaller groups in Herne Bay, which was really, really positive. On your second point, we've introduced over grants over the last couple of years the idea of kind of project grants and core grants, and the idea of allowing smaller organisations to get a core grant for their work of up to £4,000 has been really useful in giving some more growing organisations the time and the breathing space to actually prepare their outcomes frameworks and seek some of those wider grants, rather than kind of constantly chasing every single project. They're able to, appreciate they've got some element of stability. And certainly I think I was at a meeting last week when I was talking about someone who was thinking about applying a core grant for the first time. They were like, we want to grow the organisation and we consider this a way of doing it. And it certainly provides that kind of evidence that we think the organisation is working in a kind of an effective way. I think the idea about endorsing projects goes a little bit wider. Sometimes we consider that gifting money to an organisation is endorsing them. And the truth is, often organisations don't need our endorsement. They're doing fantastic work and we don't have enough money to be able to do it. What, however, we can do is, if we all say we're commonly dealing with similar problems, we're all focusing our work on there. They can get endorsement not just by us giving us pieces of money, but by tackling antisocial behaviour and sitting around the community safety partnership and getting the endorsement of the chair there. There are other ways in which they can show that their work is focused on our activities and we're working in partnership together. Sometimes those come through RISE grants, but actually they come from through a far wider range of activities. You know, the work of the Whitstable Community Museum is a prime example of something we don't necessarily always fund through RISE grants, but is funded elsewhere, and our activities are entirely aligned. So that way in which we can show our support for the voluntary sector is not always financial. And actually, the most appropriate way of doing it is to say we're commonly sitting in the trenches with you, trying to solve the problems about our local community. This is the part that we think we play. This is the value which we know you add. And then on pieces of work, we can work alongside one another, and they can show evidence of that wider work, not necessarily that we just funded them for 6 months worth of a project. It's a more long-term partnership, and I hope that that's the kind of key focus which is behind this new approach that we want to encourage here.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, that's definitely, it comes right the way back to the totally different view of a corporate plan. Really, it gives that elbow room to do exactly that, Chris, doesn't it? The core aims plus the backed up with the UN SDG. So it's totally spot on. That's, you know, a good piece of work that's coming along that. And lots more other work to follow in a similar vein, funnily enough, but not so less surprisingly so. That's great. So thank you for that. So it's been proposed and seconded, I think, isn't it?
Yep.
Yep. So we just need to vote on it, then, don't we, really? That's good. So
And that's carried, Chair.
okay, thanks for that then. So now this time I'm going to get it right, and we've got a speaker on this one, and the speaker's going to go first this time. So item 10, the draft net zero action plan 2025 to 30, permission to consult. So that's what it says on the tin. We'll come back to it. Stuart, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to address Cabinet this evening. I just want to flag some genuine concerns about the draft Canterbury City Council net zero action plan, and from kind of two angles, really. Firstly, as a novice councillor, I'm a bit confused why something, a subject of such existential importance, not just to the residents of Canterbury District, but until humanity, hasn't gone through what I assumed was the normal sort of procedure of overview, scrutiny, an opportunity for my colleagues who know much more about it than me probably to make suggestions, to make contributions, to make criticisms, constructive criticism. So firstly, just a bit concerned, and with an advance apology if I'm speaking from naivety and inexperience, that something so important has just popped up on the agenda, and certainly I didn't know anything about it till a few days ago when I saw it as part of the agenda pack. The second line of my genuine concern is about the content of the report itself, and I don't have expertise in this area, and I haven't had very much time to look at it, and I really feel uncomfortable being an amateur critic of somebody else's hard work. But it's not about the professionalism of the construction of it or the presentation of it. Obviously, that's very high quality. It's actually just a lack of ambition, a bit of woolliness, and I don't take any pleasure in saying that. That's just, and I did consult other colleagues and saying, am I imagining this? But a real lack of tangible metrics for measuring our progress, a lack of ambition, a lack of urgency, some real hard, tangible actions to achieve these targets. I'm sorry, I'm not looking to offend anybody. I thought it was really missing, and I could go into specifics given the opportunity, but as in point one, I haven't been given the opportunity. So I just want to say, I think it's a bit vague and unambitious, the content, not the professionalism of the report. And also to say it's a missed opportunity. I mean, we have a green economy. It's the fastest growing economy in the UK and in Kent. It doesn't touch on that. And actually an opportunity to save money. You know, renewable energy is cheaper, and we're all looking to be as cost effective as possible in the council. So please, would you consider perhaps having a little bit more contribution, a little bit more transparency, or even perhaps let the new climate officer have a look at it when they're in post. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Stuart. That's fine. Okay. Just a thought. This is with you, Mel, isn't it? Did you want to pick up those points about that? Because obviously there's two fundamental bits about it. So
What I'd like to do, if that's okay, is to introduce the report like do my spiel,
Yeah.
and then I'll just adjust your points, and then
Proposing.
and then I will propose it.
That's lovely. Keep going. Thank you, Mel.
Okay, so yeah, so is it okay? Yeah, right. So yeah, so yeah, I just want to introduce the Net Zero Action Plan 2025-2030. I'm really pleased that it's finally reached this stage. I will address your point in a minute, Councillor Heber, though, about that, what you're concerned about. It is going to. This is to ask for it to go to consultation today, which is all about that feedback, and it will then go through the governance where everyone will be able to put everything in. I will try to address that point that you asked, but I do want to get through that. It was put on hold because of PERDA, because there were so many elections, and it just wasn't the right time to be putting through the Net Zero Draft Action Plan. It just had too much sort of controversy that people could have picked up on. So I'm pleased that it's finally finalised and ready to consult, and it's going to go out for 12 weeks. The report sets out how the council will reach net zero by 2030. So quite a short window. However, it does talk about the reach of the next target of 2045 and the for scope 1, 2 and 3 emissions, and then 2050, which is everybody altogether. So I think this report is very much about the council's own targets, statutory targets that we have to reach by 2030, and then it sort of goes a little bit further to talk about the next stages when we need to include the whole of the community, local businesses, basically everyone's responsibility. It is everyone's responsibility to cut down our emissions to reach our targets, and when that target reaches 2030, that concept's going to be even more prominent. If you look at the report, it talks about the last climate change plan and the progress made since the last one was adopted in 2019 in reducing greenhouse emissions. So a few things have happened since then, like the move from military road offices, and that's reduced our emissions considerably. And the decarbonisation refurb of Kingsmead Leisure Centre, solar panels at the Whitstable Pool, there are new plans for the Beanie and the Roman Museum, the St Peter's House retrofit, and if you look at page 64, there's a whole list of a lot of those targets that have been met already. I also want to sort of mention, since the last plan, you know, I truly believe that climate change has become a lot more central in the thinking of the council, and I'd like to say that I contributed a little bit to that. As the portfolio holder, we have a portfolio holder for climate change now and environment. So that's really sort of put it on the map a little bit. And, you know, hopefully my colleagues can vouch for me that I always bring net zero up in the meeting to make sure that we are considering that, even though they all do it anyway. But, you know, we've got to make sure that we're always considering net zero at every point. And there's also an Officer Net Zero working group now that meet regularly to ensure that the delivery of our climate goals is met across all departments. It's not just a little shoebox in the corner, it's considered for everybody, and that's a new thing, isn't it, the officer group to do that. And I also have regular updates. I've just sent an email to Bill to schedule another one with all the departments as well, to find out to get a proper cross section of what's going on with net zero and climate change across the council. We've also some amazing news is that we've recently success of securing warm home social housing funding, and that will massively contribute to the impact of emissions in our HRA. And there's also the 1.5 million local grant scheme to help people insulate their homes and solar panels and all these sorts of things. The report, which is going to conversation, also includes an update on the greenhouse gas emissions report, which is the data, if you like, the audit that feeds into it, and to why we have this, why we have the actions, and advises the council, and that's a tool that's used in every council across the country that uses the LGA emissions tool. That data is reported periodically as well. It sets out a baseline emissions with the main, and from that report we found out that the main emitters are waste, taking up 37% of the total emissions. That's quite a large amount. And then assisted housing, that's 31% of all related emissions. That's the hostels, older people's accommodation, which I know was at the last overview and we were talking about. Also, gas heating, no surprises there, is currently the biggest contributor. And in terms of waste, it's diesel that is contributing a lot, probably about a third of the total output. One of the main challenges, so I'll sort of maybe try and address some of what you're saying. So yeah, I mean, this report, you're saying it lacks ambition. I mean, I don't think it lacks ambition. When we had our climate officer before, she was excellent, Ellen Dulling, and she was very, very pragmatic. And there's something about having ambition and then having reality, and she was able to marry the two together very, very well. We are the council, and we have a certain amount of money that we can provide, that we have access to, and a lot of that money to make those changes comes from grants, the public sector decarbonation grants that you have to apply for. They take a lot of work to do that. It takes probably about 6 months to get the feasibility studies together and all that sort of stuff. So what she was able to do is to actually look at what we need to do practically to reach our target by 2030, and look at the numbers and the actual resource of how we're going to get that. So I think the lack of ambition you're seeing isn't lack of ambition, it's very ambitious. What she did in this report is to actually make it reality, that we can actually make this achievable, not a sort of high in the sky kind of ambition that we just wouldn't be able to achieve. It's very practical, and it will be achieved because she's worked it out very well. So I think she's done a good job there. Of course, the new climate officer will look at it. The main point, I know, I will, one more minute, I know Leah's bursting to get in there. The main point, I think, is that it is a consultation, and everything you've said today is totally relevant and totally respect what you say. And I'd love you to do the consultation and put all of those comments in it. It will go to overview, definitely will go to overview, and it will get a good debate. So I therefore would like to propose the resolution to carry out a 12-week consultation on the draft Net Zero Action Plan 2025 to 2030. And I seek a seconder, please.
Yeah, thanks, Lee. Yeah, Leo, can you pick up some of that and mainly about the consultation, if you wouldn't mind?
Stuart won't know this, but the genesis of this action plan was a all-council workshop some time ago, where we invited all councillors and took many of their ideas on board. And then various periods of pre-election period came along and scuppered us to getting this plan through. So, and we see overview as a really key consultee, and perhaps a chance for people to come along and speak to the item as well. So that's all I had to say, Chair.
So yeah, this is just to put Stuart's mind, it is very much, this is the start, really, to be honest. It's like having a draft document, isn't it? And we take it away and this gives the framework for what we can talk about. But that draft document that's been framed, I think I'm right in saying, really, as Mel put over, by pragmatic, sensible, achievable goals and ambitions that we can do. That's our starting point. How we get there, we've talked about a little bit. There's a long way to go yet before this is the final document. And we will then bring it back through the process from there. So really the starting point, very much so. Quite happy with that. Actually seems like a pretty good place to start, but it is a start, you know, and that's very much part of the point. Any other comments by everybody? Does anyone wants to speak again? Alex and Chris, right. Come back and have a sum up in the end, Mel, if that's all right with you. Alex first and then Chris.
Yes, thank you. I can personally speak to the fact that Mel does mention this at every possible opportunity, at every meeting. She wasn't just putting that on for tonight's meeting. And again, this is a long process, and I'm not going to join in the beasting of the new boy a little bit here, but it has been going for a long time. The motion tonight is a motion to put this out for consultation. And that's the point. And I think we heard from previous measures that's the process during which everybody gets a good chance to have a conversation. The overview committee will be there. There's plenty of opportunity to feed into this, as there has been in the creation of it. And actually, this isn't really something that divides, I've certainly seen in this council, that divides people along party lines at all. It's something that I think we can all get behind. The issue of ambition is I think we'd all like a lot more action in these areas, nationally, globally and locally, but we have to act within our powers and within our financial constraints to be able to do it. And I think it is sometimes disappointing when you get down to the point of thinking, well, what's Canterbury going to do about the climate emergency? Well, the main thing we can do is look after our own house, help other people to do the same things themselves. And I think this document goes a long way to doing that. Of course, there is always more that can be done. But I think if there were other councils up and down the country that were doing as much as we are, then we've been in a much better place than we are now as a country and as a nation. So I think it's an excellent document to consult on. I look forward to hearing what people have to say about it. Yeah, I think we should put it out.
Yeah, Chris.
Yeah, just picking up on Alex's point, I think we'd welcome kind of the challenge from Stuart and our other colleagues. Certainly when we were in opposition, we challenged the original one back in 2020 in terms of its ambition. And I think actually when you look at it, it's quite useful to compare the documents side by side. So this actually isn't the beginning. We have a climate change plan. It went out to public consultation in 2020. And to be honest, it had a lot of good ideas for things you do in the first 5 years and actually very little in what you do from 2025 to 2030 onwards. I think if you compare the blue squiggle in the 2020 document with our green squiggle, there are 4 activities it said we do between 2025 and 2030. We're proposing 15. Because effectively the sector has changed. As kind of Stuart picks up, the sustainability of certain commercial solutions for dealing with some of these things have kind of sought fruition. But I do think it is worth kind of highlighting that so this is only part of how we do our role. And we've also been for consultations on the sustainable kind of design guide attached to the local plan, which to be honest is probably in terms of kind of actual carbon going to be quite considerably more influential than actually us dealing with our own. And there are key things which effectively sometimes get missed unless we put it out to consultation, ask for that challenge. You know, I think when we sat down as part of a local budget last year, you know, some of our colleagues accused us of not having anything about climate change in it, whilst effectively included all the money to decarbonise the bin lorry fleet, which is, as you can see here, the largest emitter of carbon. So something which is a small decision, which is a kind of about financially putting the money aside, gets missed unless effectively you put it all in one place, offer it out to the community and say, can we do better? I think that there is evidence here that we are doing better than we did in 2020. We're certainly far clearer about how we're measuring the total emitted carbon committed by the council. I think it's right to be challenged about whether there's more that we can do. But to be honest, we also need to deliver on the things that we said we were going to. And sometimes they take quite a long period of time where they're complicated engineering projects. So I very much welcome this to go out to consultation because we don't have all the answers, but we certainly have a lot more answers than we did in 2020 when we first started this project. And we will certainly be in we as an administration, as a council, won't be there in 2030 when effectively the next piece of work carries, but we should be setting the ambition for these next 5 years to make sure that in 2030 someone can build on from where we are going and kind of push this further. So I certainly welcome getting the community's feedback on it.
That's fine. Mel, do you want to just, if there's nobody else, can you just sum up and close up?
Yeah, everyone, Alex and Chris have just said what I was going to say. Yeah, it's not the start. It's part of it. We're on the journey already, and and there's lots of amazing things that we've done also already. And I don't think the council is very good at blowing their own trumpet sometimes. I mean, we have made some big achievements with our climate, whether you think it or not, but we have. And it's a journey, and you can't do everything yesterday. We have to do it in this way. And I generally do think this is an ambitious plan in terms of that it's doable, it's practical, and it gets on with the job, of doing it, which is the most important thing. And then we look at everyone's got to do their bit. That's the main bit. And, you know, you can decide to drive electric guitar. Too many gigs this weekend. You can drive electric car or take less long haul flights. I don't know which one you want to do, but, you know, it's...
That's fantastic. If we're all happy about that, then what we're actually going to do vote for tonight is to put this out to consultation. Let's get that feedback in from as many people out there as possible. Let's have some comments. Thanks a lot.
That's carried unanimously, Chair.
This bit of the agenda is the Alex Ricketts show. So that's listening now to the taxi and private hire vehicles readoption legislation, please, Alex. Thank you very much. What I'd like to do is if you can introduce the report and then propose, and obviously we get seconded, and then we'll crack on and get some feedback from Bill if we need to. Okay.
So we haven't got any public speakers on this one, unfortunately. I don't understand why. This is very simple, and as it's laid out in the report there, this is a proposal to adopt the or re-adopt Part 2 of the Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act of 1976, which we have already adopted, but it was an extremely long time ago, 1978 in fact, and we've been operating under these terms for a long time. We've done something similar in various other areas. It's very much a housekeeping issue to make sure that both we as a council and our statutory consultees and people within that, and as you will see from the report, it talks about notifying parish councils as well, just to make sure that everybody is fully aware of the legislation that we're operating under, that we're issuing the licences under. It's also something that we are not alone in doing. I understand, and thanks to the team for feeding me with this, that Shropshire, Test Valley, Mid Devon and Hinckley and Bosworth have recently carried out a similar exercise. So I think I'm sure that Bill could provide people with more information on this if they want it. Having had more information on this, please do feel free to take that opportunity. But what I will do is suggest that we resolve that the council intends to re-adopt Part 2 of the Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1976 within the council's administrative area, and 2, that the Joint Chief Executives may discharge the function to re-adopt Part 2 of the Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1976. Do I have a seconder? Oh, yes. Oh, I thought you'd be keen to do that.
Thank you, Pip.
And if the recommendations are agreed, the statutory notifications will be undertaken and subsequently the Chief Executive will adopt the legislation. Thank you.
Yeah, we will get Bill to just comment on that, but we have discussed this, myself and Alex and the licensing team, and there's some, yep, I'm happy with the advice. I think that's fine. So Bill, please, any bits and pieces, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Ricketts. I mean, just to add very briefly, I think the report itself is very straightforward. It's a very legally orientated document, but as Councillor Ricketts quite rightly points out, it is really just to, from a housekeeping perspective, to bring us totally up to date. I think probably the quickest and easiest way for me to summarise it is actually a quote from our head of legal, who said this is a belt and braces approach to what we need to do. Having passed this a number of years ago, it really is just to update what we need to do to make sure that we can function as fully as we need to. Simple as that. Thank you, Chair.
Is any other comments, or are we happy to just, we need to resolve this, don't we? We need to resolve it, so will be a vote on this one if we're happy to basically delegate to the Joint Chief Executive to sort that legislation out.
And that is carried unanimously, Chair.
That's great. Thanks for that. It's okay. Now, I told you the excitement would be building through the evening, didn't I? And you didn't believe me, did you? So, this bit is the item 12, which is an item, again, almost a piece of housekeeping item, although it's incredibly important to our council. We need to note a report from our finance, Director of Finance and Procurement, about the accounts write-off for council tax and business rates and overpayments of housing benefit. Sorry, housing benefit. Thank you very much. Yeah. So normally this would be introduced by Mike Soul, our head of finance. He's offered me a few words of wisdom to that, and obviously we've talked about this as well. But this is to note. So I'll read out Mike's words, which I think are helpful. The report schedules the debts to be written off as irrecoverable for the years 24 to 25, which it has been agreed will be reported by Cabinet prior to the Director of Finances and Procurement authorising the write-offs. So that's important. It is not a council decision. It is the Head of Finance and Procurements that does that. This is a report to us on what that decision was made. The Accounts and Audit Regulations 1996 require the decision to write off accounts to be taken with authority and responsible financial officer. In June 1996, it was agreed that the Council's Section 151 officer would report the larger debts to committee before authorising the write-offs, and Financial Regulation 10.15 provides that all write-offs over £10,000 are reported, which is what we're doing tonight at this particular meeting. We've been asked to note the write-offs detailed in the report that is itemised as either business rates, council tax, housing benefit, which I almost forgot a minute ago, and overpayments of sundry invoices and payments of sundry invoices that weren't paid. We do not write off debts except as a last resort, and that is, I think, is very clear from the age of some of these debts we've been there. The council ensures that procedures are in place to deal with the accounts properly, that proper claims are made in respect of bankruptcy and liquidation cases, executors are informed of the liabilities, and that the tracing inquiries have been made in respect of the absconded cases. It's, however, a fact of life that not all businesses succeed, and when they fail, it is often debts to national and local governments that go unpaid. The figures quoted in the reports are the total liability that we have responsibility for collecting, and not just the element that is the council's income. So, to a little bit further, on business rates, the total write-off for 2024-25 is £1,144,595, which is higher than previous years, but it should be noted that some of these debts originated several years ago, but only now are being written off due to the very low prospects now of any recovery. The year 24-25 collection rate was 97.46%, which is £50,122,745 collected and almost identical to previous years. There were 26 write-offs over £10,000 for the financial year 24-25, and these are detailed in the report, and we won't go through those, of course. Total council tax write-off for 24-25 is £396,088. The year-end 24-25 collection rate was 96.51%, which is the same as previous years and represents £116,934,935 was collected. There were no write-offs over £10,000 for the financial year, which is good news. So, and the total housing benefit overpayments written off 24-25 is £46,168. As a comparison, the previous year was £120,444.42, but amounts do vary from year to year, and it's always good to see that that amount is kept as low as possible for both the people that are stuck in that bind, as well as the people that are obviously, and us as but losing the money as well. But it's no joke for those families caught in that trap. There were two write-offs over £10,000 in 24-25, as debts are included in the reports there. So total value of sundry invoices written off 24-25 was £20,211. It's worth noting that 23-24 the value is £183,460, and for 22 it was 132,000. So we're making some huge improvements there on those sundry debts. So it's really good. So again, we've a long chat with Mike before tonight. He's very happy with that, and he would happy to recommend to us as a cabinet to accept that report and note that report. Obviously, we're now informed fully of those debts which have to be regrettably written off. So that is to note that report. Thank you very much. You could obviously comment if there was anything you wanted to do, but I was looking at faces and it didn't look like there was anything. So, no, it was thanks a lot. So just say that, as long as I'm not being too arrogant and sitting there expecting no comment. Thanks. Okay, so this is part B, items for consideration, no public participation now. So this is agenda item 13, Canterbury District Open Spaces Strategy 2025 to 2040. This again is with Mel, it's the Mel Dawkins show tonight. So what we're going to do here though is more chunky. We are going to resolve this tonight. There's some reasons why we can do that. We've got our Open Spaces team here in force, which is fantastic. Plenty of opportunity to ask questions and make sure we fully understand what we're doing here and why we're doing what we're doing. So I would ask Mel to introduce the item and then to propose it. And if then I'll get somebody to second it, and then we'll just open the debate up after having some introduction by Martin and Rebecca as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm very pleased to introduce this report and ask that we adopt this strategy tonight. It's been quite a long road, but a very constructive one. Since its first iteration in 2022, when it went out as the draft in the Reg 18 local plan. So there was a lot of feedback from that, and the team learned a lot from that, and a lot's had been put into the next draft that went to consultation. It also got discussed at length at the overview a couple of weeks ago, which I was at. So there's been lots of people making their thoughts, and I've also spoken to councillors, and I've also sat with both officers about the report, and we've sort of thrown ideas around a little bit. So a lot of work's gone into this report, and I feel that where we are today is that we've got a really excellent strategy that moving ahead. As I said, the purpose of the report today is to get that adoption, so it gives it more weight and clear status and a strong position, so that we have a clearer, more consistent communication with developers, so that we can actually start using this strategy and implementing it now, because there's some really, really good things in there. So we want to be able to use that and use the open space standards in there, in the planning and all these sorts of things, and get on with some of the actions as well. So as I said, collective we listened and updated the strategy, so there's more emphasis on the delivery of biodiversity and nature in our open spaces, such as green corridors, wilding, all that sort of thing, and then greater consideration for the maintenance of our sites as well, because that's all come up quite a lot. I've had a lot of conversations about that, especially with trees. New trees don't ever always keep dying on sites, so we need to look after that. Hopefully you've all read the report, so yeah, many times. So yeah, as I say, since that overview, many of the recommendations have been put into this new strategy and little tweaks made, such as accessibility to sites and play areas and more emphasis on inclusivity. So you should see that on the design guide part of the report. What else can I say? Yeah, sort of this idea of emphasis taken away from the car, you know, making these players more sort of friendly, I guess. I think that's all I want to say, and I just want to sort of say thanks to the officers who are sitting there, Martin, Rebecca, both got names. They've put so much work into it and to address all of these issues that came up to make those little tweaks. So I will leave it there. I just want to say, then I have to say. So I propose a resolution to adopt the Canterbury District Draft Open Space Strategy and supports its implementation, and to delegate powers to the Director of Place to update the strategy, if required, post-adoption of the local plan. Have I got a seconder?
Seconder, please. Thanks, Alex. That's good. Okay, that's fine. That's great. Thanks, Mel, for that. If could Martin and Rebecca just add thoughts or comments or important bits there, and that'd be really good. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mel, for summing that up. Not really much to add, but just to point out a few things. Obviously, one of the main aims of the document is to set out our priorities and key strategic actions for improving the quality of existing open space and making sure that new open space is provided where it should be on developments, and if not, that Section 106 developer contributions come forward that enable us to improve existing open space for new populations and existing populations. Within the strategy is a set of open space standards which are key to delivering on those things. And one of the reasons that Mel's already mentioned that we want to bring this forward in advance of the local plan being adopted is that it gives it much more weight with developers. Whilst it's not adopted, it could be challenged, and that could have quite a negative impact on open space and developer contributions as well. But the proposal is to review it at the time that the local plan comes forward for adoption to make sure that both documents align and there's no contradictions between them. The only thing I would add is we have made a number of changes and changed some of the emphasis on design considerations for open space following Overview's very valuable comments. And one thing that came out of Overview, and it's worth stating here, is as well as the open space strategy, we have a number of other documents that actually it's good to see them collectively. Those are the Biodiversity Action Plan, which obviously expands greatly on the biodiversity side, even though the open space strategy itself is actually quite chunky in that respect compared to some strategies you might find from local authorities. We also have the Green Infrastructure Plan that looks more strategically about connections of land and how they connect across the district and to neighbouring districts as well. And we have the tree and hedgerow strategy and a specific officer delivering the actions of that. So if you look at them collectively, those other ones just expand and enforce some of the things that are more generalised in the open space strategy. And that's it. Thank you.
So some comments. Are there any more comments to add to that? Yeah. Did you want to, Alex, or you okay? Yeah. I sort of just quite happy with just very quickly, Mel. I think I'm pretty happy with the document as it is. I think this one's taken that long journey, hasn't it? We were talking about the one which is put through to consultation. This one's the one that's been through the long journey there. I think it's interesting to me that it actually is straightforward. It shows our strengths and our weaknesses, and from that we can plan our future. And I love to see that in a document like this. There are parts that we are weak on, and we know where we've got to focus our funds and abilities and direct and encourage developers to fill those gaps. So I'm very happy with that, and that's why I think probably more than anything that was a reason why this needs to be adopted, so we can get those working now. Charlotte?
Just to ask, when you talk about play, and I take play provision on Whitstable Beach, would that include to expand or look to expand? Would that include sort of other recreation? Would that include sport? I'm thinking about the sort of explosion in Brighton and Hove and others of things like beach tennis. Is that encompassed by things like play?
Not usually. That would come under outdoor sport. There are some overlaps. Sometimes things such as outdoor gym or green gym equipment, which is often used by children. They don't see barriers to them using, whether it's designed for children or adults. So there are some crossovers, but things like tennis probably fit under the outdoor sport typology of open space.
Well, I suppose I'm asking for sort of things like beach activities that are not regular. So beach tennis is not tennis. It's its own. It's not governed by a sporting body. That's why I'm wondering if these kind of quasi sports, they're not sports because they're not recognised as official sports in the UK, but that in the south and east they are growing and enabling a degree of play in pockets of the more traditionally sedentary population. So I just wondered where that fell.
Well, the actual typology is called provision for children and young people. So I think it's fairly flexible, and we would look at it in a flexible manner to encompass those things. So if it doesn't sit neatly with some governing body for outdoor sport, then I'm fairly sure that we could look at it as part of provision for children and young people, which is play, but it's also wider than that. So yes.
Especially in Whitstable Beach, and indeed Herne Bay, where sort of ASB can be a concern, and perhaps deviation activities that are like this could, I wondered, perhaps fall under the jurisdiction of play. But I'll email you some of the discussions I've had with some of those beach-based play activities.
I guess that's exactly the point, isn't it? If you keep in this document broadly aspirational, then we can work through something, because who knows what might come up in beach tennis this year. It could be something. I mean, it started with just people putting jumpers down and using it as goalpost, didn't they? It's silly as that, isn't it? Got big green spaces big enough to play footy on. You do, don't you? And it's just the way it goes. You can't organise the world, can you? Really, don't want to. That's about it. But no, it's really good ideas. So good aspirational stuff. Any other points? Chris?
It's more a question, really. I mean, these types of things, whenever we put them out for consultation, we always get answers. Whenever we do some new play equipment, somebody goes, well, why haven't you made it more accessible, etc. So it's quite nice to actually have some kind of clear standards which show the kind of direction of travel. And, not every scheme is perfect. We'd always like more money for doing certain types of things, but I think having clear design standards is kind of really useful. My kind of question is how this progresses as we move forward. So this strikes me as a good snapshot of where we're at the moment in terms of assessment. And obviously the funds that we need for this will, require investment over a period of time. But in 10 years' time, this is a strategy which runs through to 2040, how are we carrying out a review of the open spaces assessment? Because we might have other community groups that bring Fields in Trust through. We might find other spaces where, ironically, it's interesting, now we've defined the idea of destination play areas. I also kind of look at them differently and go, well, we don't control that one. So, if, I'm not suggesting it would happen, but say Whitstable Castle, which is a destination space, which is on an alternative site, was to change in terms of its utility that the local community could access, how do things get kind of reprioritized and new spaces perhaps emerge? Because if the focus here is about what is the improved utility for local people, I think the sensible question is to say, how are we ensuring that that's constantly evolving based on the needs of people? So is the plan to kind of review the assessment or review the priority sites, or to kind of move them up and down? I'm unsure of that from how I read this at the moment.
I think are we looking at the judgment, the quality value assessment, whether that's sort of more dynamic over a long period of time? Is that the way that you were looking at this or not? I mean, let's just go back on it, Martin, if you want to.
Yeah, no, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Cornell. The strategy is dated 2025 to 2040 because that's reflecting the period of the local plan. Within 5 years, we will be no doubt looking at various iterations of local plan and making sure that that's kept refreshed. We would absolutely within 5 years also be looking at refreshing the assessment, exactly as you said, Councillor Cornell. So we would be refreshing that assessment to understand current trends in population demographic changes, also to reflect on things. Quite often when you put these documents together, things like Levelling Up Fund wasn't looking at investing in, and we had to very quickly change this one to go, yeah, great, lots of positive things are happening. We will be making sure within 5 years that we'll be revisiting this to look exactly at those trends, to then think about the summary of shortfalls across the different sites and the different areas, and to look to see which sites still need to work harder, or maybe new sites need to come forward to work harder to address some of the gaps. And some of the things Councillor Charlotte Cornell has just referenced would exactly be those sorts of things as well that we would try and embed. And Chair, that would also include, exactly as you said, the quality and quantity and accessibility assessment as well to capture those changes. So there'll be changes in the quality, hopefully improving because of the investment that Rebecca works on throughout the year, but there'll also be changes in the trends that we need to reflect as well.
Thanks, Martin. Charlotte and then Pip, please.
Hello, it's a different point. Just the Levelling Up Fund, and it's mentioned a few times here, and that's excellent. Obviously, we've managed to redesign some of the interpretation signage, and hopefully that design could be carried forward onto those identified sites that are appropriate within the vicinity of Canterbury, and that synchronicity in design will be held at the forefront of any possible commissions that you have. And equally, we've now taken a mould of the Biggleston lampposts with the view to re-establishing more Biggleston across Canterbury, albeit a modern version of the same. So again, if that could be prioritised in the thinking and funding and design for spaces going forward over the next 5-10 years, that would be excellent across Canterbury and really help the synchronicity of our spaces.
Yeah, go ahead, Pip. Oh, okay. Yes.
No, I didn't have my hand up. I'm perfectly content with it all. Thank you.
That's fine then. Thanks for that. Does anybody else? Yeah, okay. Oh, did you just want to say a few words? Yeah, okay, Pip.
It was just something that I forgot to say about that came up in the overview that a lot of the councillors mentioned, which was that some strategic sites were in there and they should have been in there and they've been taken out. So, another thing to point out.
Thanks, Mel. In that case, are we happy to... We've got to resolve this, haven't we? So we need to vote on that. So when we resolve this, if we do tonight, then this is the document will be live as of tonight. So the new shape will be in place. Okay, so I'll leave it with you, please.
That's carried unanimously, Chair.
That's fine. Thanks for that. Okay. Okay. Item 14, the closing item tonight is with Chris. And that is a little bit of, again, almost sort of semi-housekeeping work on our working groups. It picks up very much on the themes that you're talking about even earlier on, about keeping ourselves focused on what we really need to do going forward. So working groups 25-26, Chris, if you could introduce the item, that's really good. I know Susie's here to answer any questions and sort things out and add a bit of weight if we need to. Thanks.
just remind me that my name's on the top of the list. Obviously, local government reorganisation has caused us to review a number of our priorities, but also created a whole variety of additional demands on officers. The working group activity involves councillors, but is kind of largely led by them. But strategically reviewing some of them at this time, creating policy which in a newer organisation would be detrimental or undermine the activities of some of our neighbouring authorities is perhaps kind of not necessarily wise. So there's some recommendations here on us focusing on the things which we think are important to local residents within our district, but putting some of the larger, more complicated pieces of work which would require us to bed down over a kind of 5 to 10 year period into the consideration for local government reorganisation. Not that we don't think that they are important, and we will continue to highlight and bang the drum for them when we sit with colleagues in other administrations around that. So the suggestions here are that the task and finish groups, that we form one on short-term lets and the local plan, but they will be completed within this municipal year. That is a return to the original focus of our conversation around short-term lets, and not the wider conversation around the visitor economy, which is what we'd suggested, but is less relevant with local government reorganisation. That the work on the local and circular economy group be cancelled to give us some more capacity. We'll continue to support it through our grants and the work of the local economic development team, but changing procurement rules for an organisation which might not exist in the same type of way in a couple of years is not a sensible use of resource. And that we will cease some of the programmes for working groups and delegate the leader in consultation with the Joint Chief Executives, the ability to be able to form short task and finish groups as required. So I have to note, if I read them all out, that the task and finish group be reviewed for short-term lets and the local plan, with both to be completed this municipal year. The terms of reference are unlikely to be required in either case. That the visitor working group, economy working group and local circular economy working group be cancelled to provide additional capacity for local government reorganisation. That the Cabinet cease its formal programme of working groups and delegates authority to the leader in consultation with the Joint Chief Executives to form short-term task and finish groups as required for the purpose of local government reorganisation. And that we note that Overview Committee resolved to see the old person's accommodation review through to the conclusion and start the access to customer services review. No new working groups will be proposed once the current programme is completed, but we will continue to honour those which we have agreed with Overview.
Could I just have a second after that, please? Thank you, Pep. That's appreciated. We are going to need to resolve that in a minute or two. So any comments at all on this? Anybody? Alex? Anything at all, Susie? Yeah? Yeah.
Very quickly, just say that I think there's a lot of work's gone into this, and obviously the changing situations, and I'm glad to see the key things in there. I think we've all had to change the way that we're working as we get these new timescales and the huge amount of work that local government reorganisation is going to put onto it. So I think this is a very good solution, and I fully support it.
Thanks, Alex. Susie, should I ask you?
Thank you, Chair. Just to clarify one point, it does refer to terms of reference not being needed for the task and finish groups. That's specifically referring to formal terms of reference that are signed off by Cabinet. Obviously, if the task and finish groups think they would be useful, they can, of course, develop their own terms of reference. It just takes the formality out of it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think with that, it doesn't put a number on it either. So we might potentially have, a fairly quick couple of meetings to sort something out, and then that's fine. And then a month later, we have another afternoon meeting, sort something out again. I think it's just that give that flexibility that we will need. I think, well, I know we're going to need in the coming months. So, absolutely both ways around. It's really good. We do need to resolve this because it's a change. So if there's no other comments, we will go to the vote, if that's okay.
That's carried unanimously, Chair.
Okay. Right. It's just date and time of the next meeting. Stuff, yeah. Okay. Well, the date of the next meeting, get your diaries open, 7th of July, and we're going to meet at 7 o'clock, just for a change. And who knows, the Westgate Towers works might be done on that side now. No, maybe not. Yeah, I'll just checking. On this side of the road. Yeah, so that's fine. I can always get a bait there, Charlotte, can't we, really? It's fine. It's okay. So, no other urgent business that I've got. I don't think there's anything, is there? So that's fine. We don't need to exclude the press and public. We've got nothing that comes with that either. So with that, I can close the meeting formally at
20.